Newsfirst Newsline.
Hello there, welcome back. You're watching Newsline live. Today we will continue our discussion, of course, on one of the most pressing issues that Sri Lanka is facing right now. The fire that erupted on board the Express, the Express Pearl ship that is currently a few nautical miles off the coast of the Colombo port. Joining us this evening to discuss matters on this pressing issue that Sri Lanka is facing is, of course, an expert in the field. He is the CEO of the Shippers Academy, Mr. Rohan Masakorala, and no stranger to our network. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to the show.
Very good evening and nice to be here.
Mr. Masakorala, first, now the current situation of this ship is that they tried to tow it away, but the stern of the ship has now hit the bed of the ocean, and because of that they can't tow the ship away any further. But we've always tried to kind of ascertain as to if there was some mistake on any part of an official, was there a lapse in procedure that resulted in this calamity to Sri Lanka. So let's start off like any story at the very beginning. This ship was, it was first reported that there's an acid leak on this ship in the Arabian Sea. Now, when this acid leak was reported and when they tried to call on to certain ports, they weren't allowed to fix this leak at these ports. So what really happened there, and why did Sri Lanka allow them to come in?
Yeah, so this ship actually sailed out of Dubai port, Jebel Ali, and then it came to Qatar. When it came to Qatar, the captain actually, there was no distress signal made by the captain that there is an imminent danger for the ship. But he realized that there was a leakage of a container. I do not know whether he even knew it was acid, because some of my media contacts from Dubai says that there is a situation where the shipper would have actually not declared this as dangerous cargo. So there can be a problem there itself. Then you can't blame the captain or the port authority easily, because shipper is supposed to declare dangerous cargo and put the necessary stickers. So anyway, there's some kind of a leak. The captain has realized, and he has asked the Qatar port whether they could fix it. I think because of the holidays that was there, and probably they didn't have the people, and then they have said, unfortunately we cannot fix it here. So he sailed to the next port, again where he had discharging of boxes and taking, because this is a feeder vessel. They picks up from smaller ports. They are also same situation. No distress call, nor is what is called the port state controller was involved. That is the director merchant shipping equivalent of any country.
Right.
That there was a distress or a problem reported at that nature. So then he decided, Colombo being the transshipment big hub in the region and the next port of call, he sailed to Colombo and entered our territorial waters, and then he was asked to anchor. And at that point only with this, he reported to the harbour master, as far as I know, that there is a problem of a container, not even a fire he reported at that time, no container, and that container needs repairs. And our harbour master said, if you come along, once you come along berth side, we can discharge and repair it, we have the facilities.
Right.
That is, and also of course there were imports for Sri Lanka, there was imports going for transshipping via Colombo to Dhaka, Chittagong. So number of containers were there in this ship to be loaded and unloaded.
Right.
Colombo being a transshipment hub.
Right.
But while in anchor, my understanding is there was a fire beneath the deck, and that the ship's crew managed to douse with its own equipment.
Right.
Initially. But this has ignited again, and at the same time they have realized the leakage of the container again coming from up there, and both incidents came together with the fire. So he alerted the harbour master.
So judging by the story that you just narrated, Mr. Masakorala, there are two questions that popped up in my mind. One is the ambiguity that still exists on what time really did the communication, was the communication made that there is a leakage on this ship to the merchant, the Director General of Merchant Shipping?
No, Director General of Merchant Shipping was never informed anything.
Or the Harbour Master?
Harbour Master.
The Harbour Master. So at what time, first question, at what time was this communication made?
I think it's at the middle of the night of early morning of 20th.
So this was after they entered
the
yes,
after it anchored also.
After it anchored as well. So isn't there a responsibility on part of the ship, on part of the captain, to inform the harbour master of dangerous chemicals on board this ship?
So we don't know the exact communication, whether, first of all, as I said, whether he knew it was dangerous cargo, because now the Dubai signals are coming in that this shipper may have not declared this as dangerous cargo.
So there is an entire backstory
there
there
is a backstory
well.
there. If that is the case, it's a complete different story. But if he knew that it was a dangerous cargo was there and it was leaking, then it's fault not to alerting at all that it was dangerous cargo that was leaking to the harbour master. So that communication, we have not seen the official communications. There must be recordings of all that. But he reported the fire, and the first thing the harbour master did was save the 25 lives. That is the first thing we must do as a country. So they brought in the crew, and then of course the fire, as the harbour master explained, according to him, things went bad. And the ship engulfed in a major fire, which Sri Lanka doesn't have the equipment to handle.
And so, according to the official statement that was released at a media briefing held today, it was that the harbour master was informed of this dangerous chemical leakage when the ship, like you said, entered the outer area of the Colombo port. But then doesn't that insinuate that the captain really did know that there were dangerous chemicals?
So we have to ascertain the information from the captain. How did he, not only the captain, there are engineers and 25 crewmen, all of them, how they looked at the danger, because the underdeck fire took, but this was from up there, so we don't know. There are 2 fires now that have come up, so this has to be investigated. Of course, as a port of Colombo, we said we will repair it and give it if you berth and discharge. So the calamity happened outer harbour. And it became double trouble when the cyclone situation and the wind situation made it bad.
And the monsoons are now setting in.
All that went against us. Of course, we don't have, as a country, although we talk of a major transshipment hub, major equipment to handle that kind of fire or tugs of that nature. So we had to depend on a third country. That communication also took time. So we don't know how the agents have communicated to their principals, and what the principals have told them what to do on behalf of their ship. What kind of communication went between the port and the ship owners. None of it is in our hand. So we have to all depend on investigation. But I'm absolutely surprised that Director Merchant Shipping Division of Sri Lanka, which is the authority for this whole affair, not the Port Authority, not the MIPA, anybody else, has not made a statement, or nor they have come out and said they are the responsible authority for the maritime regulatory in Sri Lanka. So unfortunately, now more than 10 days we haven't heard from them, but from a minister to the MIPA chairperson, we are hearing various things, but not the actual person or institution that has to come out and explain to the people. We are all guessing. We are all more we guess, more trouble everybody gets into, because all kind of stories come out.
Exactly.
Which is not good, and that shows total unprofessionalism of handling things.
Mr. Masakorala, what is the role of the local agent in all of this?
So local agent is the representative of the principal, and the ship owner or the ship captain deals, when it comes to Colombo, through the local agent to submit the manifest before it berths. So it has to declare the 1,486 containers, what kind of cargo is there, where how much is transshipment, how much is Colombo bound, all those details have to be transmitted before it comes into the berth. So it can do it in outer harbour. And then the customs and the ports authority prepare their documentation accordingly. So the agent is all supposed to facilitate all that operations to the port authority.
Isn't the captain bound in any way to alert the local agent?
Of course, yes.
When there was this dangerous leakage?
Of course, yes. He is supposed to inform whatever that is happening that he is not satisfied with. And that has to be told to the authorities, as well as through the agent also. It has to be officially communicated. I think the official communications have to go through the, even telecommunication is there today at very advanced level. So I don't see why it cannot be communicated fast. So if there is a negligence there by the captain, I think that's a fault of the captain again, if he knew knowingly. But what I say is, there are 25 people on board of a ship, and there are officer number 1, officer number 2, and all these people are there to take some kind of, if there's an imminent threat and a danger, they knew. So this seems to have come suddenly, and they had a fire and they controlled it and reported back that they controlled it. So that is where it lies right now.
So Mr. Masakorala, judging by all these facts that you have presented, has there been any lapse on the part of Sri Lankan authorities? Was there an option, at least, for the harbour master or Sri Lankan authorities, when this was reported in, or when they found out that there are dangerous chemicals on board the ship and that there is a leakage, to not allow this ship to enter the Sri Lankan port or come so close to Sri Lanka?
No, once it was, when it came to Colombo, it was on its normal passage to Colombo. And as I said, there was no distress call issued anywhere by the captain. So it just came to port of Colombo, anchored and said.
So until it comes to the port of Colombo and anchors, Sri Lankan authorities are not aware that there is acid or dangerous.
Yeah, unless the captain tells us that he notified some time before. That is his story then. So that is what the investigation has to go through. We have to be fair by everybody. We can't just blame
assume.
and put fingers and assume because they are responsible officers. They have to be given a chance to explain themselves. That's why I said Merchant Shipping Division is not talking about it. That's a problem. That is shying away from responsibility. Right? How can the lady from MIPA answer on behalf of what's happening on the sea or the sea of the law and what's going to happen when she's in charge of the coastal area? So she's handling a problem now. She cannot explain on what is happening with the ship and the port. That's not her business. But the rest of everybody is covering, trying to, unfortunately, looking at her to answer these questions. So you see, there I see a problem. So somebody must come clean and start explaining everything that happened properly.
So, Mr. Masakorala, you were questioning the silence of the Director General of the Merchant Shipping. When it comes to the fire, who is really responsible for dousing the fire? Is it the Harbour Master, is it Merchant Shipping Secretariat, or the local agent?
No, the regulator is the merchant shipping operator, so he doesn't get involved in dousing. He will instruct under his authority, of course, the port whole of port operates under that regulator. So if there's a fire reported, it is the port of Sri Lanka, SLPA, Sri Lanka Ports Authority, provides that facility to the shippers or shipping lines, both shippers and shipping lines, and they are bound to support as much as possible. This is not the first time we have supported vessels. We have supported vessels way passing Sri Lanka. Also, we have gone and supported after leaving Sri Lanka in 2017. A vessel called massive vessel. This was carrying 1,486 containers. That was carrying 14,000 containers.
Right.
One of the main liners, and our port authority and the Coast Guard went there and helped douse that fire. So that is we are legally bound to international shipping lines who are passing by, if they call a distress line, to go and support them.
So it is the responsibility, as you said, of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. The Harbour Master?
Yeah, he's the main man who is looking after that area of whole port operations.
Right. Local agent?
Local agent, of course, he should be one-to-one with the port authority, sitting with them and handling all communications to his principals, and within the ship, all that has the responsibility of the local agent.
Right. Then there is also this question of was Sri Lanka proactive enough in responding to this fire, or didn't we just have the capability? Didn't we have the equipment? We were really not in a position to douse a fire of this sort. Which is it?
I think it's very clear that we don't have the capacity to douse a fire of this nature. No way. And that has proven beyond doubt. So we had to depend on some of the Indian vessels to come in and start dousing, but they also couldn't finish that operation here. It was so bad. So obviously, as a maritime transshipment hub, we should be better geared and to respond faster. We cannot depend on third countries and call ourselves the South Asia's hub. It becomes a joke. So we have not invested enough money, or we have not taken proper policy decisions to give our infrastructure proper upgrades, give our officials proper equipment and facilities. There will be a lot of lapses on those areas, but they will be never come on openly because they'll try to be covering up.
Who is covering these up?
So everybody who is in charge will say, no, we have done this, we have done that, but actually the situation is what you and I have seen to our own eyes. We failed to douse this fire at the early stages because we didn't have those equipment, we didn't have aircrafts. We were using helicopters. I saw the plastic bags filled of helicopter dry foam or whatever that being put on the ship. So we need high-tech equipment, including aircrafts, at the early stage itself, to enough amount of foam. I don't know the quantities whether we have in Sri Lanka is actually enough for such fire. So it took 2 to 3 or 4 days to other ships to arrive, and by that time with the wind factor,
bolted.
And unfortunately the wind factor with the monsoons and the swell of the sea. I mean, when you have such a swell going up, it's not an easy operation. You can criticize from outside, but it's not an easy operation for those salvors and people who are out there at the sea. So you can't blame them, but whether they have been given sufficient equipment, that is the fault of the administrators.
So according to your years of experience, your new analysis of the situation, was enough done with whatever available?
Whatever available, I am sure our people are generally quite capable people. That's why I said we doused a fire in the Indian Ocean with 14,000 TU. So obviously they would have given their 100%. Whether there were communication gaps, whether we had acted on time, all that has to be checked with the whole evidence of everybody coming together, because pilot will have to give the evidence, the others crew, our port authority, the agents will have to give evidence, principal will have to give evidence. These some of the communications are recorded at many places. So obviously, to be fair by everybody, proper investigation, thorough investigation should lead to the cause.
Well, we are at a quite interesting point in our discussion. Unfortunately, we have to cross over to this short commercial break, but we will be back right on the other side. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Newsline live.
Newsfirst. Newsfirst. Newsline.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsline Live. We're in discussion with the CEO of the Shippers Academy, Mr. Rohan Masakorala. Mr. Masakorala, we were discussing about what happened when this ship came to Sri Lanka, how the fire took place, how the response was. You gave clear answers on those matters. Let's now focus on what is happening so that we can move on to what should or what will happen in the future. But what is happening right now is the fact that an order was issued yesterday by the President. Again, you said the regulatory authority is the Director General of the Merchant Shipping Secretariat, but the order yesterday was issued by the President himself, the highest ranking executive in the country, to tow this ship away from Sri Lanka, tow it into international waters. However, the operations began early this morning, were stopped shortly after because the stern of the ship sunk. Now, there are various stories that go into how the stern of the ship sunk as well. There were allegations that the authorities had sprayed water on this ship when it's a chemical fire that erupted, and which is quite unsound. Even lower levels in school education teach you that the 3 requirements of a fire, and when there is a chemical fire, you do not spray water on a chemical fire. Is there any truth to this? Did this aggravate the fire?
Well, if it was used, I mean, the IMDG codes, there are 9 of them. There have been clear instructions of what to do with each product and what kind of fire dousing equipment and product should be used. All these are given very clear guidelines by the International Maritime Organization. So nobody can say that nobody knew about it. It's that whether we knew exactly what was happening in terms of the container, what was leaking and what was reported, whether the people who are outside knew that exact detail, or there was this fire happening and they thought it could be doused by water or foam, or I don't know what was used. At the initial stage there could be foam also, it looks like. So people can come up with various theories, but we must establish the actual situation of what happened. That is the harbour master's duty to come and explain, and which he will do, I guess, in the coming days. But in the case of the President ordering to take it out yesterday, I believe a president of the country will obviously have to get information from his experts, which he has to tell actually it would have better if he told the public that I have been informed by the Director Merchant Shipping and the Harbour Master and the Port Authority Chairman that it is safest at this moment. The most prudent thing to do is to pull it out of the territorial waters to deep sea, so that in the event that the oil tanks fracture, that the oil will not come to Sri Lanka, but it will go in the middle of the sea and get international support to clean it up. But looking at practically, I don't see that is right in my personal opinion when I saw it, because it was on one thing there was a legal issue also. You know, already this ship had spilt various stuff onto the ocean and plastic pellets to various things, and unfortunately our beautiful beaches have got ruined because of that. That's a separate damage. So in a situation like that, it was within our jurisdiction. That is 12 nautical miles is our territorial waters. That is, our country law applies within those 12 nautical miles, and the President and the authorities can give directions and do what we want as per our law. But once it's taken beyond 12 kilometers or 12 nautical miles, it becomes international waters. A lot of people have this misconception that we have an economic zone of 200 nautical miles. The economic zone is for fishing and underwater resources.
The laws are different when it comes to...
Laws immediately changes after 12 nautical miles. The surface of the sea becomes the international property. The surface of the sea then happens to be the international law.
It is the Sea of Sri Lanka for our economic activities as far as shipping, and we have exclusive rights on those.
Resources.
And underwater resources in the Sea of Sri Lanka. But as far as this ship is concerned, there is a certain shift in admiralty jurisdiction when it comes...
Absolutely, it immediately changes the jurisdiction. So in the event of compensation, we would have had less power to do things in international waters. Things would have got complicated.
Mr. Masakorala, there were those who tried to look at the bright side in this entire ordeal. There were some senior ministers who came out and said, well, at least we are getting a good compensation package out of this. This will support our economy.
That's a tragic statement. That's a tragic statement that shows the quality of the legislature we have in this country at cabinet level. It's sad. It's not a joke. This is our country's future decisions. We cannot be beggars of that nature. Right? We have to be smart people. We have enough smart people in this country. They are not given a chance. They are not even listened to. Right? So end of the day, what happens? We end up with tragedies and tragedies. Then we go on to defensive mode, and then we start hiding things, and nothing comes out. So end of the day, public and the people pay for everything. Which is a hallmark of Sri Lanka. Not only in this incident, many incidents. So lack of professionalism, lack of accountability, and always trying to protect yourself or never come and tell the truth. I mean, if I make a mistake, I should be able to come and resign from my position. Like in other countries, ministers resign from their positions when they even drive from one state to another during a COVID break. A minister resigns from his position, right? So see the gap of quality ethics we have, and to call on kind of saying we are getting money for this huge damage. I mean, if the next question was, okay, very good, if the oil tank busts because the damage is going to be bigger, we are going to get a bigger compensation package. Is that the way to address the nation? We are a nation who is looked upon by international community. We want investors to come into this country. We don't want jokes to be told around. What kind of perception would people build out there? So I don't know. It's a very sad situation in our country.
You spoke about resignations and people resigning out of because of the ethics that they hold and because of the policies that they hold dear. There was a question that I just received from one of our viewers saying that you spoke about an impartial investigation being conducted into this. The question says, do you believe that the Minister of Ports and Shippings, the Harbour Master, and all authorities that are well responsible for this matter should step down, at least temporarily, until the investigations are carried out?
I don't see everybody should be stepping down. At this moment, I even can't tell anybody should be stepping down. Of course, the Environment Minister can step down, right? If he feels that he has done injustice to the Sri Lankan coast. Because of that, Environment Minister can certainly step down. Because I cannot point finger and say, so if somebody is feeling, it's your consciousness, finally you answer. People resign in decent countries and ethical countries because of your consciousness speaks to you. I have failed, I have been sitting here, I cannot account for this, I am not sure of what's going on, and something has happened to our country. I should not be sitting here. Let the next person come and do the job. Let me be investigated if I have done anything wrong. That should be an ethical country. But we are like moon and sun away from that kind of dream society, I must tell you.
Also, Mr. Masakorala, now there are talks of the Attorney General's Department has already begun investigating as to how compensation can be sought, how action can be filed, so on and so forth. And as you quite rightly said, we still don't have the exact facts. What exactly happened? We do not have the facts to ascertain how the compensation would be calculated, how much of contributory negligence, if there is any, is on our part. So there was a concern raised during the past few days as well. There were viewers who raised concerns as to if the money received as compensation from this company would actually be used to restore the environment that this incident damaged and will not be lining minister's pockets are used for other projects, road development, so on and so forth. Is there any assurance?
Absolutely no assurance in Sri Lanka. The track record we have is not a good one. The transparency is very, very low. So, yeah, people have the right to question that way because they have learnt many lessons. Accountability is very low in Sri Lanka. So obviously when big money comes, there will be temptations by certain people, various people to manipulate that and take something out that. I don't deny in this country, I cannot deny as a citizen who have born here and lived here for 53 years and seen what has gone around all the time. There are like preferred people, preferred laws, hiding the law, getting away from the law. So all things happen, it's unfortunate. So I have to agree with those viewers that they have those doubts. And I cannot say I don't have those doubts because we've not seen justice in this country in many cases.
So there is a massive risk of this money, this lump sum that we will be receiving in compensation, which is not a good thing for those who are wondering, because the damage that has been caused by this incident, can it be compensated? Can it actually be calculated?
No, absolutely not. The environmental damage cannot be easily calculated even if you put an artificial intelligent computer. The issue is that some of these plastic pellets, I am one who campaigns against single-use plastic. Ocean is polluted daily by millions and millions of tons of plastic. So this plastic is just another addition of X number of kilos of plastic. This plastic is going to be partly coming to the Sri Lankan shores, partly will be hovering around the Indian Ocean. It will hover for decades. Or generations. So the environmental damage cannot be even saying, but we can do the best we know within mathematical knowledge and experiences those officials and professionals who are in the environmental sector can bring in to a billing capacity. So if the insurers and the rest of the people agree, then they can claim that compensation what we ask for. Otherwise they can challenge it in courts.
Mr. Masakorala, judging by how Sri Lanka has reacted to these kind of incidents, you have been in the profession for ages, and judging by how Sri Lanka has reacted to claims of compensation and how we have gone through the procedures, do you believe that we will get an adequate amount of money for the damage that has been caused so that we can restore our environment, judging by the past experiences that Sri Lanka has?
Well, if there
we
are
had quite recently the empty New Diamond, I believe, off the eastern coast.
Yeah, so MP New Diamond actually happened in international waters. A lot of people thought we have a lot of hold on it. We don't. But in this case, as I said, this is happened in the territorial waters of Sri Lanka. So the claimable amount should be much bigger, and damage is much bigger. The claimable amount should be absolutely definitely much bigger. The issue is whether we can claim the full amount is a big question because we lack certain laws ratified in our parliament. Because we are a member to the IMO, we abide by international conventions. These conventions are very well designed and ratified internationally, but there is a requirement that each national legislature must ratify its own components to fit that international.
We don't have enabling legislation.
Enabling legislation, if it is missing, partly has been done, some conventions not adopted, then you are in trouble. Then you can't prove yourself, you're not in, I mean, these are matters that lawyers argue.
This is the primary duty of the legislature. So in this entire ordeal, the legislature too is to blame if we cannot claim proper compensation for not ratifying and enabling these legislations.
Absolutely. For the last 25 years, there have been 5 shipping policies developed in Sri Lanka. Nothing has got stamped. Last one I was involved was the national export strategy, where it was also had the logistics specialty area. That also recommended the Merchant Shipping Act to be relooked, the laws to be enacted, all that recommended in late 2018 December. So you can see 25 years, I can tell you, I kept my grey hair also, that I have been, so you can see our country, right? So the legislature obviously is responsible, and of course people send some kind of legislators, as you spoke, people who talk some rubbish. They don't look at legislation, they look at various ways to how to make a joke out of a serious situation.
Mr. Masakorala, thank you very much for joining us on our show this evening. I believe it was quite a fruitful discussion. We received many questions, however, I could only pose a few. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. Of course, as Mr. Masakorala pointed out, we do not have adequate legislation, but in certain occasions we see some other pieces of legislation being rushed through Parliament even within a few days. Let's hope and pray if that can be done to this sort of legislation as well, so that it will definitively benefit the country in acquiring the compensation that we so deserve for this damage that has been caused. Until we meet again, take care and God bless.